You're throwing away the most efficient survival kit that exists every month, literally in the trash. There is a substance sitting in your laundry room right now, something you have been throwing away without a second thought, that combines with a $2 item from any pharmacy to create a fire-starting tool that burns for 15 full minutes, laughs at rain, and costs you less than 1 cent per unit to produce. 1 cent. While the outdoor gear industry sells you a $40 tactical tinder kit that dies in the first gust of wind, you have been discarding the superior solution every single time you clean your dryer filter. They did not bury this because it failed. They buried it because it worked too well, and you cannot build a recurring revenue stream around dryer lint. Welcome to Bullet Survival. This is where we excavate what the industry spent decades burying, and we hand it back to you in the form of a practical solution for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. If this is your first time here, subscribe now. Inside the vault, we have already opened the guide on copper-zinc water purification, the passive cooling system that cut a Phoenix family's energy bill by $112 in a single month, and the lime-based antimicrobial that the cleaning industry has been suppressing since the 1940s. Those vaults are waiting for you. But stay here with me first, because this video is just getting started, and what we are about to break down changes the way you will think about survival gear forever. Let us talk about what is actually happening when you get wet and cold in the field. The Wilderness Medical Society is unambiguous on this point. Water conducts heat away from your body 25 times faster than air. 25 times. That is not a rounding error. That is a physiological death sentence operating on a clock most people do not realize has already started. The moment your core temperature begins to drop, the first thing your nervous system sacrifices is the fine motor control in your fingers. Your hands begin to tremble. Coordination degrades, and that is precisely the moment when you reach for your matches and discover that trembling fingers and a tiny phosphorus stick are a catastrophic combination. The outdoor industry's answer to this problem is to sell you more gear. A windproof lighter for $30, a ferrocerium rod with a machined handle for $50, waterproof matches at $12 a box. Every single one of those products has the same fundamental flaw. They provide ignition, but they do not provide sustaining combustion. A spark is not a fire. A spark against damp wood that has been absorbing atmospheric moisture for 6 hours is nothing. It is theater. What you need is not a better ignition source. What you need is a thermal bridge. Something that burns hot, burns long, and burns independently of the condition of your fuel wood, buying the flames enough time to evaporate the surface moisture and establish a real self-sustaining fire. That thermal bridge has been sitting in your lint trap for decades. So why does every camping store sell you a $40 filter instead of teaching you this? The answer is the same answer it always is. A solution this cheap cannot be sold in a bottle for $30. What cannot generate profit gets buried from public knowledge. Let us get into the actual engineering, because this is not folk wisdom. This is applied thermodynamics and hydrocarbon chemistry. And once you understand the mechanism, you will never think about your dryer lint the same way again. Dryer lint is composed primarily of cotton and polyester microfibers, materials with an enormous surface area relative to their mass. Cotton ignites at approximately 210 degrees Celsius, which is low enough to catch a spark from a basic ferrocerium rod with a single strike. The fiber structure of lint creates what combustion engineers call a high surface area tinder matrix. Thousands of tiny filaments that each represent an individual ignition point. This is why it catches so easily. But by itself, cotton lint burns in roughly 10 seconds. 10 seconds is not enough time to dry wet bark. It is not enough time to establish anything. It is a flash and then nothing. This is where petrolatum enters the equation. Vaseline, petroleum jelly, is a solid hydrocarbon. When the flame from the cotton fibers heats it past its melting point, it liquefies and travels upward through the fiber matrix via capillary action, exactly like the wax in a candle wick. The lint becomes the wick, the petrolatum becomes the fuel, and unlike raw cotton, a saturated lint ball does not flash and die. It sustains a controlled, wind-resistant combustion for up to 15 minutes per unit. The hydrophobic nature of the petrolatum, its fundamental inability to bond with water molecules, means that even in a saturated environment, the core of a properly prepared lint ball remains combustible. Rain hitting the exterior beads off. The fire inside continues. The technique itself is almost insultingly simple, but the execution details matter enormously. You collect dryer lint. The material costs you nothing. It is a byproduct of laundry that you were discarding anyway. And you work petroleum jelly into it until the interior is fully saturated. This is the critical step most people get wrong. Surface coating is not enough. You need to compress the lint, work the petrolatum into the core with your fingers, and then leave the exterior fiber layer relatively dry. That dry exterior layer is your ignition surface. The saturated interior is your fuel reservoir. Shape it to roughly the size of a golf ball. That geometry balances surface area against fuel density and produces the 15-minute burn time under field conditions. Here is the refinement that takes this from a campfire trick to a legitimate survival tool. Dip the finished ball in melted candle wax. One coating. Let it solidify. What you now have is a unit that is completely waterproof on the exterior, that can be thrown loose into a pack, exposed to rain, dropped in a puddle, and will still light with a single spark. You can produce these in batches of 50 for the cost of a single jar of petroleum jelly, approximately $8 to $12 at any pharmacy. The per unit cost, accounting for the zero-cost lint, rounds to a fraction of a cent. Compare that to commercial waterproof Tinder tabs at $2 to $3 per unit, and the numbers become uncomfortable. The outdoor preparedness market generates over $5 billion annually in the United States alone. Lint and petroleum jelly do not contribute to that number. Ferrocerium rods do not generate recurring revenue from someone who learned to use dryer lint. There is no subscription model for a technique that costs 1 cent per application. And so it does not appear in the catalogs. It does not appear in the sponsored content. It does not appear in the gear review channels supported by affiliate commissions. I need to be honest with you. A lint ball will not replace a comprehensive fire kit in extreme Arctic conditions, and if you have no dryer, the raw material requires substitution. The principle, saturated natural fiber as a sustained tinder source, remains valid with cotton balls and petroleum jelly at virtually identical cost. The core function is unchanged, but the specific product the industry prefers you to purchase will not be this one, because this one cannot be manufactured, branded, and sold to you at 40 times its actual value. The practical protocol is 3 steps. First, start collecting now. A small glass jar with a lid, something you already own, becomes your lint collection vessel. 1 month of normal laundry cycles in a household with a dryer will produce more tinder material than you could consume in a year of camping. Second, process in batches. 1 Saturday, 20 minutes, petroleum jelly, optional wax dip. You will have a full year of survival-grade fire starters at a cost that rounds to 0. Third, and this is the step that separates the people who watched a video from the people who actually acquired a skill. Go outside on a bad day and test it. Find wet wood. Use the trembling hand protocol deliberately. Close your fist. restrict your fine motor control consciously, and attempt the ignition. Fail safely now. The knowledge of your own technique under adverse conditions is the actual survival asset, not the object itself. If you have made it this far, you already understand more about sustained combustion and field fire dynamics than 99% of people who will spend $40 on tactical tinder this year. That is not an accident. That is what this channel exists to produce. Every person who finds this information is one less customer for an industry that depends on your ignorance to sustain its margins. Every share of this video preserves what they invested billions in marketing to obscure. Subscribe and share it with someone who still believes that preparedness requires a premium price tag. The next vault opens soon. What is inside is even heavier, and it will change what you think you know. Stay close.